You don't love someone for their looks, or their clothes, or for their fancy car, but because they sing a song only you can hear. Most people are other people. Their thoughts are someone else's opinions, their lives a mimicry, their passions a quotation. You will always be fond of me. I represent to you all the sins you never had the courage to commit. It is absurd to divide people into good and bad. People are either charming or tedious. Children begin by loving their parents. As they grow older they judge them, sometimes they forgive them. Selfishness is not living as one wishes to live, it is asking others to live as one wishes to live. Anybody can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. I choose my friends for their good looks, my acquaintances for their good characters, and my enemies for their good intellects. There are only two kinds of people who are really fascinating: people who know absolutely everything, and people who know absolutely nothing. One should never trust a woman who tells one her real age. A woman who would tell one that would tell one anything. There is a luxury in self-reproach. When we blame ourselves, we feel that no one else has a right to blame us. It is the confession, not the priest, that gives us absolution. If I am occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated. In old days books were written by men of letters and read by the public. Nowadays books are written by the public and read by nobody. I have no objection to anyone's sex life as long as they don't practice it in the street and frighten the horses. People are very fond of giving away what they need most themselves. It is what I call the depth of generosity. My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman. Humanity takes itself too seriously. It is the world's original sin. If the cavemen had known how to laugh, history would have been different. Nowadays most people die of a sort of creeping common sense, and discover when it is too late that the only things one never regrets are one's mistakes. There is a luxury in self-reproach. When we blame ourselves, we feel that no one else has a right to blame us. It is the confession, not the priest, that gives us absolution. Keep love in your heart. A life without it is like a sunless garden when the flowers are dead. The consciousness of loving and being loved brings a warmth and a richness to life that nothing else can bring. Yes, I am a dreamer. For a dreamer is one who can only find his way by moonlight, and his punishment is that he sees the dawn before the rest of the world. Death must be so beautiful. To lie in the soft brown earth, with the grasses waving above one's head, and listen to silence. To have no yesterday, and no tomorrow. To forget time, to forgive life, to be at peace. How can a woman be expected to be happy with a man who insists on treating her as if she were a perfectly normal human being? There are moments when one has to choose between living one's own life, fully, entirely, completely, or dragging out some false, shallow, degrading existence that the world in its hypocrisy demands. Men always want to be a woman's first love. That is their clumsy vanity. We women have a more subtle instinct about these things. What women like is to be a man's last romance. The good ended happily, and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means. Anybody can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. Anybody can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. Disobedience, in the eyes of anyone who has read history, is man's original virtue. It is through disobedience that progress has been made, through disobedience and through rebellion. I don't like compliments, and I don't see why a man should think he is pleasing a woman enormously when he says to her a whole heap of things that he doesn't mean. It is only shallow people who do not judge by appearances. The true mystery of the world is the visible, not the invisible. The reason we all like to think so well of others is that we are all afraid for ourselves. The basis of optimism is sheer terror. They get up early, because they have so much to do, and go to bed early, because they have so little to think about. There is always something ridiculous about the emotions of people whom one has ceased to love. Which quote do you like the most? Comment down